Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Brain Bean here again. And Logitech just recently put out their G512 carbon mechanical keyboard, kind of right on the heels of the G513. And the G513 was unique in that it offered the linear Romer G switch, and this was kind of the first time that Logitech offered that linear switch with the proprietary Romer G switches that they have. So when they announced the G512 was coming with Clicky switches, I got really excited because I was hoping to see a keyboard with Clicky Romer Gs. And we'll get to that here in just a second, but I decided for this video, instead of just doing a dedicated review for the G512, I wanted to do kind of more of a comparison and just a general overview, because the G512 you'll see here in just a minute is very similar to the G513, and realistically just kind of comes down to a few features that you won't find in the G512 that you get with the G513. But I want to kind of dive into what is, in my eyes, the most exciting part about the G512, and that is the GX Blue Clicky switch. So going back to what I said originally about the Romer G switches and having a clicky one, the first thing you'll notice when you pop a keycap off on this keyboard is that they are your classic kind of MX style switches. They're not clicky Romer G switches. And when I was at E3 a couple of weeks back, I actually had the opportunity to meet with Logitech's, one of the engineers that actually designed some of their peripherals, and I asked him about why the switch is not a clicky Romer G style switch. And he told me that basically the way they designed that switch, there's just no room left in it to put that clicky mechanism. It's just physically impossible. So when they came down to designing the clicky switches for their keyboards, they had to kind of go with the more classic approach. Now, as for the stats on these switches, they have a 1.9mm actuation and a 4mm total travel distance with a 50 grams actuation force with a lifespan of 70 million clicks. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, that is because those are the same exact specs that you'll find on the Razer Green switch. Now, what's even more interesting is that the Logitech GX Blue switch is actually made by Kale, and you can actually see the Kale branding here at the bottom of the switch, which just so happens was also the manufacturer originally of the Razer Green switch before they moved on to different manufacturers. So kind of, talking about how the switch performs, I mean, really, if you've used the Razer Green switch, I mean, you've basically used this switch. On the Logitech board itself, comparing, one thing that I was most interested in was what is the lighting going to be like for the G13, which uses the Romer G, which the big thing is the light pipes in the middle of the switches that really illuminates those keys, versus going back to the classic MX style switch with the LEDs at the top. Is that really going to affect the lighting? If I look at these two boards side by side, will I notice much of a difference? And the answer there is kind of yes and no. And the big reason for that is that the keycaps on the G513 have those characters right in the middle of the keys. And of course, that's so that that light can go through the light pipe and illuminate those keys. Whereas on the G512, they're kind of in the classic spot that you would find them on most keyboards, which is kind of near the top. Lighting wise, it's about the same. They're both vibrantly lit. All of the keycaps are well illuminated. All those characters are filled out. But another thing you'll notice as well is on the 512, the secondary characters are not illuminated as well, much like Razer keyboards are. And so that's a little bit of a bummer when going from the G513, where all of the characters are illuminated, even the little ones on the side for the media keys as well. So it's, not quite the same experience that you would be used to. Now, as far as typing experience goes, they are a nice light clicky switch. They do have a really, really fair amount of key wobble, which was also coincidentally a big issue I had with Razer switches as well. Now that they have those walls on the side, it's not as big of an issue anymore, but these definitely feel like kind of Gen 1 clicky Razer Green switches. And, it's not too, kind of harp on them for that or anything as far as that goes. But really what it all comes down to is that's basically the exact same switch that's in this board. That's just what it is. And of course, I wouldn't leave you guys without a sound test, so I'm gonna actually demo all three Logitech switches. We'll start with the GX Blue and move through the tactile to the linear Romer Gs as well, so you can kind of just see the whole catalog of Logitech switches. So now that we've kind of talked about that, let's go over just a little bit about what the difference is between the G513 and the G512R. They do share a couple of similarities. They both have that nice brushed aluminum kind of carbon looking backplate. They have these same logos up in the top right corner. Both of them do not have macro or media keys dedicated. They both have those nice rainbow LED indicators, but still the G512 doesn't have indicators for all the functions, which I found a little bit weird, which was the same thing that I said about the G513. They both also have the USB pass-through at the top right corner. And really, what we can kind of figure out from that is that it uses the same exact chassis that the G513 does. And the main things that it comes down to is the extras that you get in the box. So with the G513, you also get that nice pillowy wrist rest and also the set of extra keycaps. You'll also notice on the bottom as well, it's got the channel for the cable routing in there, and you'll find that on the G512 and the G513. Of course, I've also already done a dedicated full-length review of the G513, so if you guys want to kind of see more of what I'm talking about, I'll link that down in the description below. So let's talk dollars and cents here. The G513 is $150, which is appropriate because it comes with the extras, and I also think that those Romer G switches kind of justify a little bit higher price. Now moving on over to the G512, this one is $100, which considering you get the USB pass-through and it's got a nice minimalistic design with the brushed metal backplate, and pretty well illuminated keys. It's got a nice clean look to the board. The font's nice and simple. I don't think that that's an unfair price. I've definitely played around on keyboards that are more expensive that don't feel as quality. Now, unfortunately, I can't really endorse the new GX Clicky switch as much as I would like to, because as you guys know, I've already kind of had issues with the original Razor Green switch, and essentially this switch has all of the exact same specs. The only real difference is that the plastic that makes up the stem is blue instead of green. If it were me and I was kind of talking to you guys about which one of these keyboards you should buy if you were considering it, unless you really like clicky switches and you wanted to keep things all in the Logitech family, I would really recommend going with the G513 over the G512, because for $50, even though you only really get the wrist rest and the included keycaps, just having the experience of the Romer G Linear and the Romer G Tactile are very solid switches that I've always said are some of my favorite switches out there. And just kind of going over to the blues, I don't know guys, I just think that for the price, you're so close to getting the full-blown G513. That's what I would recommend. But I want to know what you guys think as well, so let me know in those comments down below what you think about the new GX Blue switch. Are you happy seeing Logitech try to move into another direction and offer a different type of switch? Are you disappointed that there wasn't a Clicky Romer G? Let me know what you guys think. But anyways guys, that's it for this quick comparison. Again, if you want to learn more about the Logitech G513, you'll find my full-length review down in the description below. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like to show your support, and if you're new here, I'd love to see you subscribe because we've got a lot more videos coming for you in the near future. You can also follow me on Twitter at BrainBeanGaming, but as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.